I'm going to tell you about the research I've been doing on pesticides and biocides in the Danish population of European hedgehogs. So the background for this is, of course, that the hedgehogs are declining. In the UK, they're vulnerable on the red list status. On other national red lists in Europe, they're listed as threatened or near threatened. Currently, the status for Europe is being updated. Right now, they are least concerned, but it will be updated soon. I was one of the people who evaluated the status, so I know. So my research is basically focusing on detecting what is causing this decline, because we need to know what to do to prevent it. So I researched a lot of different subjects, and I think it's really interesting to keep in mind that hedgehogs live close to humans, and therefore a variety of human action seems to be contributing to this worrying decline we see in hedgehogs in Europe. So I wanted to look into toxicology in hedgehogs, so the exposure to potentially toxic chemicals in hedgehogs, because I thought there could be a contributing factor to this general decline we see in the species, either due to the reduction of food and items through insecticides use. So if we kill the insects, the hedgehogs won't have anything to eat, or through poisoning, direct poisoning by eating the poison we put out for rats and mice and slugs and snails, for example, but also by eating animals that have died from poisoning, or slugs, for example, that have died from poisoning, all due to the non-acute toxic health consequences. So what actually happens in the hedgehogs if these different poisons accumulate in their systems? So today you're going to learn a new word, or at least it was a complete new word to me, xenobiotics. When I started this, I didn't know that word, but it's basically chemical substances that are foreign to animal life. So substances, chemicals in an animal that wouldn't occur naturally in an animal. So I think that hedgehogs are excellent model species for the exposure to xenobiotics, because they share habitats with us humans. So we are basically exposed to the same chemicals, which makes it really interesting. They eat the slugs and snails and insects that are targeted with pesticides. They eat carrion that could have been poisoned through rodenticides, for example, and they can eat the poison directly. And they also eat insects that feed on plants, which could have been treated with herbicides. And they travel through fields and gardens and come into close physical contact with the plants that could have been treated with herbicides and insecticides. So, if you're interested in research on the accumulation of xenobiotics in hedgehogs, I just published this paper 2 days ago. I'm very proud of it. It's open access. It's a review paper, so I basically reviewed all the research that is currently out there, which means that I sadly haven't included Katrina's work because it's not published yet. And then to my great disappointment, I just noticed the other day that there was a new study out like 14 days before this was published. So, but I didn't include that. But other than that, there's a lot of studies in there where I basically show everything there is to know at the current state about toxicology in hedgehogs. And it's published in a special issue of Animals, and I'll get back to that. So basically, my samples are from the Danish Hedgehog Project, which was my PhD project, and I'm using the dead Danish hedgehogs to understand the living, because obviously we can't take out the livers from the living hedgehogs. That wouldn't be very nice, so we use the dead ones. I asked the citizens of Denmark to collect dead hedgehogs for my research. And I collaborated with a lot of different specialists about this because I wanted to investigate all sorts of things in these hedgehogs. Since they died anyway, and we took out all the organs through necropsies, I might as well just use them to do all sorts of research on the hedgehogs. We had 26 collection stations all over Denmark and had a nationwide collection of dead hedgehogs. And I did a massive public outreach campaign to create awareness, and it really paid off. I ended up with almost 700 dead hedgehogs collected from all over Denmark. And it's really a unique sample set, because normally when you study wildlife from a specific area in a country, or now we have a representation from all over a country, the whole of Denmark. Really unique sample set. We've used these hedgehogs for all sorts of different research: genetics, MRSA bacteria, endoparasite, and life tables describing the population, ringworm and MRSA, age determination. So we basically determined the age of 400 of these hedgehogs by counting growth lines, like in the tree rings of the hedgehog's jaws. We've done this toxicology study, and we've looked into dental health. We're going to use these samples for the microbiome research and looking specifically into salmonella occurrence, coronavirus. We're going to look into the histology of these animals. So we found in 47 of these animals, we found samples that could actually be cancerous. So we're going to look into that. Hopefully I'm going to use fecal samples to look at their diet choice through eDNA. We're going to research microplastics in the hedgehogs. And we're also going to look at collision hotspots based on the data all the volunteers provided for these dead hedgehogs. So where were they found and so on. And we have a lot of samples remaining as well, which we can use for further research. All the publications are available open access from a ResearchGate profile, for example. So I really try to prioritize publishing open access so that anybody can go in and read what we've done. Okay. So I'm going to present the research we've done on pesticide accumulation in the Danish hedgehogs. So it hasn't been published yet. Hopefully it will be submitted for review next week. Just have to finish the paper. But it's done in collaboration with some of my colleagues here. I just wanted to acknowledge them. We did what is known as targeted screening. So we chose which different chemicals we wanted to research. So we were screening for specific chemicals in 115 liver samples from Danish dead hedgehogs collected in 2016. And in Denmark, we have this pesticide use statistics, so we could actually look up the most frequently used rodenticides, insecticides, and herbicides, which was what we based our selection on. We used mass spectrometry for this, and we looked at different rodenticides, herbicides, and insecticides. And what we found was that 84% of these 115 hedgehogs had rodenticides in them. 43% had insecticides, and 50% had herbicides. That was really, really surprising and very worrying, especially given the fact that we only searched for certain different chemicals. I mean, we didn't do a general non-target screening on this. So this is an overview of the samples and the occurrences, and the black lines around some of the columns indicate the total. Just to provide you with an overview, we're going to publish this data so you can look into detail if you want to. So the most frequently detected compounds for insecticides was imidacloprid, and for herbicides it was methomitron, and then bromadiolone, like the one Katrin mentioned as well. Fipronil was never really detected, or it was below the quantification limit we had set for this. And I think it's down to the method we used. But the interesting thing is we know all sorts of things about these hedgehogs because I've used them for all the different research projects. So we could actually look into, so with an older hedgehog, a hedgehog of 16 years of age, for example, like Torvald, which became famous in February last year all over the world because he's the oldest detected hedgehog ever. Would he have, more rodenticides in the system than the others, and so on? Would sex affect the results? And we didn't find anything that would influence this. So this could indicate that there's just a general extensive exposure to pesticides throughout the population of the Danish hedgehogs.